Welcome everybody to Ordinary Council Meeting 4542 of Hunters Hill Council. Can I ask you please to all be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge and show my respects to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We are joined today by Robin Harvey, who is going to deliver the prayer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to invite those who pray to join with me and those who do not to share our traditions and faith. They may like to just respectfully pause to reflect on all that is said and raised. Creator God, we do give thanks to the Wallamedical people who have looked after this particular land that we are on now for thousands of years. We pray for their elders, past, present, and those emerging, that we can continue to learn to live together on this land. And we pray for hearts that seek to be reconciled and united as one. We pray tonight for peace among nations. There is so much turmoil in our world, Lord, that your love and compassion is needed more than ever. Pray for people affected by homelessness in our great city of Sydney. Be with the many organisations that give love and assistance to the hundreds living in hardship. Locally, though, we pray for all of the local councils and especially for Hunters Hill councillors. We give thanks for the care and concern that they have for their communities. We pray for Zach Miles, our mayor, for councillors Williams, Cassab, Bagara, Prieston, Lane, Tanos Lehman, and for Nick Tobin as our acting general manager, and for all staff of the council. We pray for their families and all that who support and uphold them. We pray upon them a spirit of wisdom, compassion and generosity. We pray for a willingness to work together for the common good of this municipality. We pray for the projects this council is delivering to the community. May they be beneficial to all in the Hunters Hill community. Pray for the churches in this municipality that their witness to all will give hope to many that God is with them at all times. We pray this knowing that you are always listening with a loving and concerned heart. Amen.
Thank you, Robin. Please be seated, everyone. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIP Act. Members of the public attending a council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party, members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we are joined, as Robin alluded to, by our acting general manager remotely. Welcome to you, Nick. He is joining us remotely for this first session, and Councillor Prieston is coming back from her honeymoon. Congratulations to her on her very recent wedding. So she is either going to join late, or there she is. Councillor Prieston is joining us via Zoom as well, it looks like, from the airport. So thank you, Councillor Prieston. There are no other apologies. Declarations of interest, councillors. There being none, I will move on to the confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting 4541 held 24 February 2025. Move, Councillor Williams.
No, Mayor. Before we do this, I just wonder if the acting general manager would like to make any comments.
Yes, I believe the acting general manager is in receipt of your amendments, which have been reflected in the minutes. But acting GM.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I had a conversation with Councillor Williams this afternoon, and there are a number of administrative technical things to fix up in the minutes, which have now been included. They don't affect any of the recommendations or the resolutions of council, and all those changes have now been made and tidied up, and so the minutes as altered are now okay for adoption. unless there's other changes in the structure of them that others have to bring up.
Councillor Williams.
With those amendments, I'm happy to move.
Moved, Councillor Williams, seconded, Councillor Tanus-Sleeman. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with dissent from Councillor Vergara. Councillors, there are no mayoral minutes, although I will note that a very prominent member of our community in Jeffrey Squires very sadly passed away unexpectedly in the last week. I haven't had time to do a mayoral minute for Jeffrey. He is a very significant member of the community of Hunters Hill. He's a former aide de camp to a Governor General and a very devout member of the Anglican parish of Hunters Hill. So very sad to share that news, and there will be a mayoral minute with respect to Jeffrey's life and his passing at the next meeting. His funeral will be being held tomorrow at 10 o'clock at All Saints Church for any who are going to be in attendance. There are no notices of motion, including rescission motions. So I move on to item 4.1, the final net zero implementation plan and environmental sustainability policy. Moved, Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Lane, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to speak. The process that this council's been through over the many years now to move forward from its initial declaration net zero by 2050. There's been a series of community interactions and also a series of policies that have been developed that are complementary to this policy. I think it's important that council adopt it. I note that there's some comments that have been considered by council for inclusion in the final documentation. So with that, I think the policy is meeting the community's expectations, and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Tanus-Sleeman.
Thanks. I confirm and I note one submission was received by council specifically in relation to the draft environment sustainability policy, and 6 submissions were made to the draft net zero implementation plan. 6 out of the 8 of the submissions were praising council for prioritising climate action. Whilst this is encouraging and not taking away any good work from the council that has developed to date, I am very mindful and very cost conscious of any potential changes that have been scoped to the draft policy and its impact to the wider community. I am concerned there was such a low participation rate with the feedback, and I don't think it is truly reflective of the whole residents in our area. I want to also refer council to our last council research report conducted on October the 2024. The survey that was conducted across our LGA identified key priorities. Climate action was 3%. So there were about 27 other priorities before climate action was a concern for our residents. So, and also to note, addressing climate change sustainability initiatives was 3%, which was actually a drop from 7% from the prior study done in 2022. I'm going to state I'm in agreement that we do need a policy and a commitment to good environment and sustainability practices. So as such, I have a few questions. I note that the recommendation states there are no direct financial impact on council adopted budget as a result of its report, but the implementation of these actions would be budgeted within council capital works budget and through grant funding opportunities. My question, what are these costs, and do we have other competing priorities that we potentially could consider in our capital works? I can carry it. Do you want to read all 3 questions?
I'm happy to answer them in tandem. So I'll throw through unless the acting general manager would like to, I'll throw to Sam, our director.
Yeah, I'm happy for Sam, and then I might add some words as well.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the actions within the sustainability,
And thank you very
Councillor
much.
Tinsley.
That leads me to targets. So thank you. So the targets were the 50% emissions reduction on the 2005 levels by 2030 and 70% emissions reduction on the 2005 levels by 2035. Are we on track to achieving those targets?
We're more than on track to achieve those targets. We've been very conservative with that, but when we entered into the power partnership agreement, we pretty much nailed all of these targets. So we are very on track, and we've done it conservatively, but we will report more accurately the results once we start moving through things.
Okay, and
Councillor.
so do we? Sorry, thank you. And I've got one more question, but this is part of this question as well. But so the changes that we recommended through this report, are they changes that we believe are going to fast track us to get into those goals? Wonderful. Lastly, I also note that under the environmental sustainability policy, under psychosocial hazards, it states that on the 24th of February 2024, Council passed a resolution declaring a climate emergency, calling for a greater response to our changing climate. It also states that climate change is recognised as the greatest health threat of the 21st century and has significant impacts on physical and mental health and psychosocial well-being. The incidents of bushfires, droughts, floods and other extreme weather events which have damaged communities and livelihoods have caused associated psychological distress. However, I'm perplexed to understand how this statement really is relevant to our LGA, given we haven't been impacted by these bushfires, droughts and floods. According to the Black Dog Institute and other leading mental advocacy groups, between 20 to 50% of people who live in these areas with unpredictable and extreme weather events can develop immediate elevated rates of anxiety, depression, PTSD, sleep disruption and suicidal intentions. And as many of 10 to 20% may experience post-traumatic stress disorder following the years post the disaster. Given the policy states that the climate change has an impact in the growing mental health and psychosocial issues, I can't see anything though in the drafted policies to address those specific issues or initiatives and preventative measures to help mitigate this. My question is, if this is considered a significant risk, is there a plan to address improving mental health and psychosocial issues in our community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of the strategic sustainability framework that was adopted in 2023, we are planning to do a resilience strategy. That resilience strategy is going to be done next financial year with funding allocated through the operational budget. And that resilience strategy will address that. We are working with the City of Sydney Council, the City of Sydney and we will use their resilience strategy as a foundation for our strategies. And this strategy has just come out in draft and we will follow suit. So that particular strategy is separate to the net zero, but it's just as important, if not more important. And to address your concern about climate change, we're very lucky being in Hunters Hill that we don't have extreme weather events, but I can tell you that when there are extreme storms, from being head of infrastructure, we get phone calls in the middle of the night. We get floods. We get people with, up to their knees in water where they that hasn't happened before to them. And this is a response to these microcell storms that are occurring as a result of climate change. We also have a huge amount of seawalls and coastline that is also subject to erosion and degradation as a result of increased weather events. So although we don't have the extreme, every single council is hit with climate change. And from an infrastructure perspective, it means we have to upgrade stormwater networks. We have to improve the engineering of our seawalls and our marine structures that get damaged when we have these huge storm events. So we do have to consider it, and it is really, really important.
I thank you. And I would say I don't know which reference points you're referring to, but the ones that I've been across they've been a direct result of other issues through whether it be new storm waters, road changes that have been made or haven't been sort of constructed correctly or what may be. So I don't know if there's a direct correlation to the extreme weather. Feedback I've received from residents, it's been the follow through and the road repair work, not necessarily the climate or the severe storm. It's about will the roads hold up, because we don't have faith in council. So at which I will state on record that I know there's been a lot of great work done in there, but I don't think there's a direct correlation to extreme weather that causes anxiety. It's can the stormwater hold up? Because prior to that, it did hold up. Last 10 years, things have changed in terms of the stormwater growth. Anyway, thank you very much for answering those questions for me.
Councillor Begara.
I have a question.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, probably to the director. What would the material consequences be of not adopting the environmental sustainability policy?
Sorry, General Manager, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or did you want to throw us directly to the director?
Look, I think if we don't adopt it, we don't have a basis for a lot of things we're doing into the future. As the director said, it's all about setting the standards for buildings and new works, incorporating those into the budgets that we adopt for those items. But in relation to that question, I might pass to the director to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the sustainability policy, the way it is the umbrella policy that sort of knits all of the relevant documentation and so on and so forth together. It just sets the principles, the high level principles. It's not going to it's not actually got any deliverables associated with it, but it does set our vision statement for where we want to be with regard to sustainability holus bolus. So it includes the net zero implementation plan. It includes the technical design specification. It includes the EV strategy. It's the umbrella document that holds them all together. So there won't be a huge material loss. It will just mean these documents are standalone.
Is the adoption of a policy framework in this way a requirement, a legislative requirement in any way, shape or form?
It isn't a legislative requirement. However, it's consistent with a lot of other councils and how they do it, and it also allows people looking at. I know that when I'm looking at sustainability policy and so on and so forth, sometimes it can be a bit messy trying to navigate what is this compared to this, and do they all mean the same thing? This kind of sets it out and gives it clarity.
But if I could add, Mr. Mayor, just in relation to that, it does allow us, when going for grants and other income sources, to be able to table these documents. Gives you a much better opportunity for things like grants. And that's what the government bodies are looking for, these things all the time. As the director has said, it's about an overarching principle for us to guide how we do things. I suppose it just makes a lot of it's common sense and what we should be doing day to day. This just documents that common sense.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is it Councillor Vergara?
What's for shadow amendment?
Yes.
Just delete numbered point 1.
Delete point 1.
Sorry. So you would keep the implementation.
Sorry, Councillor Lane.
Sorry, just
Yep. Have you got a question?
it was only to Councillor Vergara.
Yes. Well, you can put your hand up and ask if you can address a question to Councillor Vergara.
Councillor Vergara. So we would keep the implementation. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Do you want me to speak to that?
That is, would you like to speak to the question?
Oh, no.
No?
The amendment, the proposed amendment.
Yes. Yes, you may. Is the amendment seconded? Sorry. Councillor Tanis Sleeman.
Sorry, could we have it up on the screen if possible?
It is, sorry, Councillor Preston, it is only the deletion of point 1 that council adopt the environmental sustainability policy. That's the only amendment. Sorry, Councillor Vergara.
Look, I think the policy is a bit vacuous, doesn't do anything. The commitment there of those things, council's committed to doing those things with respect to the general manager. We're already doing those things. For example, reduce waste to landfill. We're doing FO. The EV thing, we're already doing that charging station. We are walking the walk on sustainability. I don't think this adds anything other than create another pretty vacuous point of reference. You've got all those other related documents. It doesn't do anything. It's just another policy you'll have to review in 3 years. This council is, I'm happy to say, walking the walk on sustainability. This is not needed.
Thank you. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Lane?
Sure. I think Sam put it quite elegantly when she said that it sets the principles so that we can act. I think, as is famously said, a fail to plan is a plan to fail. And I think that the problem with deleting, particularly the diagram that shows how everything stitches together, is it's quite hard to understand why we're doing what we're doing, and things can fall off. So we might, tinker with the waste policy next, or we might decide we don't actually need a part of the implementation plan. So I think it helps as a roadmap. I think if people are concerned with specific elements of it, like the psychosocial hazards, that could have been addressed in the exhibition period. I note, for example, that we are vulnerable to major events like Sydney hailstorm, that we are subject to psychosocial hazards. We've got a presentation from the police, Ryde area police, talking about how crimes of despair are our number one crime, if you can call it that. So it's not like we're immune from these issues, and we know already from what insurers are saying that if we don't act on climate change, that it will cause us to have effectively uninsurable places because of the increasingly frequent storms like the microcells that, again, Sam specifically referenced already are affecting the stormwater in our council area. So I guess as a general comment, I would say we probably need more structured policies and less decisions on the fly. And I would welcome such a well thought through parent policy being retained in the document and council's policy framework.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers for the policy? For the amendment, sorry. Against the amendment, sorry, for the amendment?
Yeah, just on that, I agree with councillor Bagara as well. Again, I don't dispute it's not a well put together sort of policy, but I think it's a policy on a policy. And my concern is, you know, we're in a very good position, you know, as a council compared to a lot of councils around us. We haven't had to put up rates. We've been conservative in our decisions, and as I said, I do believe we walk the talk. I don't think we need another overarching policy. I'm perplexed with a couple of things that Councillor Lane has referred to. I'm not sure what a crime rate and has got to do with climate emergency. Yeah, but happy to have that discussion offline because I can't see any correlation whatsoever. I'd love to sort of see this policy. You refer to the resilience, because our biggest issue at the moment is, you know, what I've seen and what I've seen through schools and all that is, you know, an ability to disconnect, and you know, and that to me is what's causing our anxiety. Certainly, I don't sort of attribute it to the climate change, but that's both my personal and professional opinion from what I've seen the data to support that. But again, I agree and in agreement with Councillor Bagara's comments that we don't need an additional policy. That's obvious.
Thank you, Councillor Denise Lehman. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just find it intriguing that after all this work we've done in relation to sustainability, that we're now going to not give the community a consolidated outcome as to the principles and framework which we will move forward on. It is important to note that resilience in the proposal to go towards a resilience policy next year is important to our community. Our community is subjected to issues that are maybe not necessarily local, but they're regional, if not national. We constantly get a whole series of media stories about climate, so-called climate events, which to me, I think our community have a response to that as well as they do to our own local issues, which I disagree with its structural changes that are causing our flooding. I chaired the Flood Management Committee, and I have a long history and experience as a professional in that field. And to me, the issue is changing, and it is one that does impact our community. And as the director pointed out, it's not only the physical thing of flooding, but it's also the deterioration of our assets and seawalls. I think it's important that we provide a structured approach to our community. This doesn't lock us into any expenditure. Council will make its own decisions at budget time as to what it does progress or not progress in relation to these issues. So to me, it's important that we have our statements and our positions very clearly articulated to the community so that they can be reassured that we're moving down a path to their benefit. And sure, we've done a lot of good things in recent times and a lot of things may already have been covered, but the structure, the principles and the framework which this offers, I think are critical to council's moving forward in a considered and meaningful way.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any speakers for the amendment? Against the amendment? Right of reply, councillor Bergara.
Mayor, can I speak against the amendment?
Sorry, thank you. For or against the amendment? Sorry, councillor Preston.
Against the amendment, please, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. I think in a nutshell, a lot has been discussed, but while I agree with councillors Bergara and Tanu-Sleeman, and having to be cognizant as a council of our priorities and our expenditure in light of those priorities, I think that as the GM kind of alluded to, this policy and this document will set the guardrails for forward with sustainability focused initiatives or sustainability elements to various initiatives. I'll note that we're already doing these things, as councillor Bergara mentioned earlier, and so why not have appropriate kind of governance in place to guide us through those initiatives. For example, there was sustainability elements to development at the Boronia Park Clubhouse, and it's consistent with the motion that we moved in the last council meeting in relation to FOGO. I'll also note that, sorry, I'm just getting it up, on page 93 of the council papers, waste management and recycling efforts were front of mind for the local survey in terms of local community members who have perceived council's existing initiatives in relation to sustainability. And this is something that is front of mind for council, as evidenced by the last meeting in relation to FOGO and other things, and the cliff that we're heading towards in relation to waste space in Sydney and Greater Sydney. And so I think there are other issues that aren't just, effectively climate related that we need to be conscious of as a council body. And I think that this report does a very good job at encompassing all things and giving us kind of the set of principles to lead us through projects in the future that may have other objectives, but also have sustainable elements that need to be adhered to.
Thank you, councillor Preston. Sorry, is there any other speakers on the amendment, not the motion? No. If not, I'll give right a reply to councillor Bergara.
Okay. There are no guardrails in this policy. It's a 6-page statement which says what we are committed to. My point is, what we are committed to is the walk we are walking. It doesn't provide any guardrails. As a governance framework, it's pretty poor. Just states your commitment. Doesn't even state principles about how the commitment is to be affected. The psychosocial hazards component means nothing. It's just a statement. It just looks like it's, I don't know. I don't even know. But it's just there with no principle, no governance, no framework. I'm happy for it to be deferred and brought back. I just think in this form, it doesn't actually properly stitch together all those things, because here's they are related documents. If you really wanted it stitched together, you'd have, we're committed to this, and this is how we do it through this implementation plan, through this urban forest strategy. It's not a great policy. It doesn't affect anything at the moment. We are, as I said, walking the walk. Useless.
Thank you, councillor Bergara. Just prior to, so I've got one question of the director before we vote on the amendment. The resilience strategy, is that interpreted to go into that where is it interpreted to go into that mix?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
in the framework that's within the sustainability strategy, the resilience strategy forms part of that framework. So that's one of the many documents that are part of the sustainability framework.
Yeah, but is it specifically in the yes,
It's
okay.
specifically mentioned, yes.
Yep, okay. Right, that being the case, I will put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried on. Sorry, councillor Preston, I assume you are voting for? the amendment?
Against.
Against the amendment?
The council,
Oh.
It's very, that's very strong language.
Sorry, councillors, I'll just wait till we can get councillor those Telstra towers in
sorry,
better?
I dropped.
Sorry, just to confirm, councillor Preston, did you vote in favour or against the amendment?
Against the amendment.
Against the amendments. Well, that's sorry. Oh, so I'll do that again. All those in favour of the amendment? Against the amendment? That is lost. Sorry, that is one on my casting vote. Apologies.
Lost on your casting vote.
One on my casting vote. So I'll read out the numbers. Councillors Vergara as mover, Tanos Lehman as seconder, and Kassab voted for. Councillors Lane, Williams, Preston, and myself voted against. That is lost. Yes. So we move back to the original motion.
I thought you said one.
Councillors, is there any other debate on the original motion? Councillor Lane.
I just wanted to, in support, I think it's a fantastic document, obviously. I just wanted to point out that while we've had many discussions, one of the things that I did notice, which was helpful about the policy that we're voting on, is that it has a list of council's commitments which point to the future direction that I believe Councillor Preston talked about on page 3. So it says council is committed to reducing waste to landfill, for example, and then specifies how. I think that's the operational page that we were talking about. So I would urge, if that was the primary concern, that there was a lack of operational information, that with the benefit of page 3, we proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any further discussion? Councillor Denise Lehman.
Thanks. Yeah, that wasn't my point. My issue, I have a real language issue with the wording of the psychosocial hazards that's put in there. And to me, that's just, it's lip service, doesn't mean anything at all to me. I'm not in, I'd prefer to have if I could wind back time 4 years ago and look at the logic and the rationale on how we declared a climate emergency in Hunters Hill, but I can't, so I'll deal with what we have at the moment, but I'm not comfortable with this whole piece around psychosocial hazards. And I do agree, it's a great document. That's not in dispute. The document's a good document. It's been involved, put together. I just think it's a surplus to what we need.
Thank you, Councillor Denise Lehman. Any further discussion? Right of reply. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think it is very important that we adopt these documents, or this document. It gives the community some insight to what the complex issues we're dealing with. It provides us with some guidelines. I disagree that it doesn't. I think the framework gives us a good journey forward. And it is a journey, Mr. Mayor. No one's saying we're going to resolve this overnight. It is a journey, and it's something that we have to work away at. We have to find funds where appropriate. We have to be able to be in a good position to obtain grants. And basically, we've learned from experience that if you have the right documentation in place, it is so much easier and so much more successful to gain grants, which are key to the way a council like ours can move forward on some major issues. So I think these documents are important. They do provide us with a platform to move forward. And as I said before, nothing in here is being decided in terms of budgetary outcomes. We go through a budget process, which we will then consider those points that we want to move forward in the next financial year, and those points that we will leave to a later time. I think council needs to be a good citizen and show its understanding and give direction to the community. One of the points that comes out of this process and this journey we've been on is that there may be a cost, but there's also a significant saving in going down this path. council set up a sustainability fund, which quarantined some funds to initiate this process moving forward, and on the basis that it would be built upon by the savings that would come from these initiatives. So it's not all downside in terms of cost. There are real savings to be made both in the present and in the long term. So again, I come back to this issue of resilience. I think council is moving forward to address that issue. I think it is real for our community, both through its exposure to media, exposure to personal experience within our own municipality and around the Sydney region. So I commend these documents. I think the staff have done a great job, and I think the community will benefit from the guidance which these will give our community.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. All those in favour? Against? That is carried, I believe, unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Prieston. I believe you voted for it. It's a bit difficult. You've got a time delay on there. Councillors, I move to item 4.2 on the business paper. We have a speaker to this item. So I welcome Jim Sanderson to the podium. Thank you, Jim. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the policy that you've got before you tonight, but I will I think it does need some amendment. I grew up in Hunters Hill in the 1950s and 60s. Back then, Eucalyptus biliaris was commonly known as blackbutt, was a very dominant tree species. However, the table of the preferred species excludes blackbutts, but on the other hand, it excludes liquid amber, which from the botanic name appears that it was a native to Taiwan. If the table is going to include exotics, it should be stated which are native and where all species come from. The table must also be comprehensive and perhaps have separate tables of species that should be avoided. We've got plenty of examples. More recently, the Spanish moss that's creating havoc with our tree canopy. The strategy mentions planning controls, but fails to mention Chapter 6 of the Biodiversity and Conservation Set, which is extraordinarily important in the protection of our foreshores. The policy also mentions the 330-300 rule, but I believe we've got little hope of achieving 30% canopy coverage on private land. And this is why I've expressed grave concern about any dilution of the provisions in our LEP that may allow less landscaped area on private land. At the end of the day, our LEP presently only requires 30% soft or 33% soft landscaping on the majority of land, and the housing SEPs allow even less. The other point I'd make relating to my earlier life in Hunters Hill is that in the 50s and 60s, we had a huge number of diversity of small birds. These were possible because there was a lot of understory to support them. We need diversity in the kind of green spaces we have. Our bushland and parks cannot provide sufficient canopy without private land doing its bit. Our bush and parks require diversity of canopy and understory to support the re-emergence of small birds and other fauna. Finally, one point I would strongly make is that we must recognise that our tree canopy was about 36.8% back in 2019, and it reduced to 33.5% in 2022. I'm sure it's even less than that now.
Sorry, Jim, move
Just
for an extension.
about the
Last sentence.
Just about.
Sorry, I'll go move extension time. Councillor Williams seconded. Councillor Lane, all those in favour? Against? Sorry, I'll do that again. All those in favour? Against?
Good, thank you.
That is carried. Thank you, Jim. You have another minute.
Well, I don't feel I need that, but again, I think there's recognition that the canopy has fallen by an amount that's more or less equivalent to what we otherwise would have had to make up at this point in time. In 2019 at 36.8%, falling to 33.5%. If we'd gone in the other direction from there, we already would have got the 40% target. So the first thing we need to do is stop going in reverse. So I commend the policy, but I would like to see a few amendments as I've suggested.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any questions? Councillor Williams.
I was wondering if you could expand a bit on Chapter 6 of the Biodiversity Conservation Act, its relevance.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williams. I mean, you would know that during my time as a member of the Conservation Advisory Panel, I frequently referred to the Biodiversity and Conservation SEP because of the protection it did give our foreshores, particularly in terms of views to and from. It also covers a lot of the issues to do with tree, vegetation on foreshores and so on. And I think one of the things that would be very good for this council to do would be to improve its understanding of that SEP and apply it far better. To give an example, if you go back to about 2009, back in those days, that part of the SEP was then known as the Sydney Regional Environmental Plan, Sydney Harbour 2005. If that had been properly applied in the report on the Woolwich Marina, I don't believe the marina ever could have got passed because the SEP was simply, the Sydney Regional Environmental Plan as it was then, was simply not understood. And there are many other examples like that I could cite.
Thank you, Jim. Any further questions, councillors? If not, thank you. Councillors, is there a mover to the motion? Councillor Lane.
I'd like to move it with an amendment.
You may, yes. Did we? I believe you did send that amendment through to the staff earlier.
I did.
But can we put it up on screen?
Yes.
Just for the benefit of councillors.
It's to add 2 up on the screen, which is that a priority list of specific short-term actions derived from Section 5 is brought to the next council meeting. The purpose of moving this amendment.
Sorry, councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams, you may speak to the motion.
Thank you. The purpose of this really reflects what Jim was saying and what you can observe, which is a bit unlike the implementation plan in 4.1. This strategy lacks anything specific to hang off it. So it's really difficult to understand what, if anything, is going to be done. I was also looking at the species list that Jim was referring to, but my concern is a different one, which is that while that species list helpfully identifies small, medium and large trees and their mature canopy cover so that it's a bit more consistent with our DCP that requires a minimum 12-metre cover, there isn't really any action that changes the way that replacement trees under the DCP are specified. And so while we have this policy, when we come to the individual tree replacement, again, we have a mixture of small and large species. I think this kind of thing can be easily fixed. So 013 in the policy kind of alludes to a way that we might go forward, but without a specific action plan, it's very difficult to understand what we're going to do and when, and particularly those short-term actions like updating our tree species need to be understood by council so that we can see how this is taken forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the recommendation and as amended. However, I do have some underlying issues with the document. They're not sufficient to stop it proceeding, but I think council needs to be aware that there's still some work to be done in this space and that we need to be working forward. It was interesting to note that Mr. Sanderson mentioned in 2019 we had 36.81% canopy cover, and in 2022, we had 33.5. Another 3 years has transpired since then. And I think it'd be really insightful to know what the percentage cover is today. Is it gone down to 30%? Or is it stable? Is it going up or down? So I think some of the fundamentals are fantastic, but I think we're still working in an environment in this municipality that is undermining good outcomes for our tree canopy. I think council itself is probably managing its assets, its street trees and its reserves in a professional way. However, my argument has always been about the private tree canopy cover. And as we've heard, and as I've said time and time again, I think the LEP DCP review has got it wrong if we're going to go down the path of freeing up the reduced or changing the requirements in terms of garden space. I think it is really important that we get a spread of trees across our municipality. If we talk about heat reduction, we talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is key in its ability to move across spaces to be able to go from one habitat to another. And it can only do that if it has sufficient corridors. And many years ago, the Bushland Advisory Committee worked with the Macquarie Uni to develop a strategy in terms of biodiversity and what corridors and paths need to be developed or maintained. And that was very instructive in terms of the importance of private property. And we talk a lot about our planning processes, and I think the state government CDC process is really undermining what we need to deliver in our community. That quite often approvals are given without adequate attention to either the existing trees that are on the site or the potential to plant meaningful outcomes in terms of growth. And I think Councillor Lane alluded to the point that later on in our report, it's a bit inconsistent with what we're talking about here now, that we have, if you just look at the replacement species, they're not going to deliver any of the outcomes that we're talking about here. Magnolias and brush box and the bottle brushes and whatever don't deliver a tree canopy. They're important in terms of providing habitat for small birds and transition of that. They're in the mix, but our planning environment at the moment is totally inconsistent with what we're doing here. And I don't see the review of the LEP DCP advancing the issue at all. It's probably bringing us backwards. Monitoring and enforcement is critical in this process. And I think that we need to really up the ante in relation to that. We quite often see requirements that are never fulfilled, either because council doesn't have the resources or the time or the inclination to go back and check. And the bonds are quite often inadequate to prevent misuse. I think it's important that we look at species that represent our locality. Blackputts, stringy bark, they're all very important components of our natural environment and should be recognised in this document. And most of all in this document that I disagree with is trading off trees by saying to somebody who wants to pull a tree down, you can pull it down if you pay money to council, for council to put one somewhere else. The government tried to bring in a biodiversity set that was going to allow developments to pull down large amounts of trees in Sydney and then pay to have more trees put elsewhere. That does nothing to achieve the outcomes that we're trying to achieve as a council. And it's in this document that we're talking about trade-offs. I don't think that's relevant in a municipality like ours. Anyway, I know I'm rabbiting on, but this is very important. We all talk about the importance of trees in our community. And I think the structure here provides a framework to move forward. It's not the end of the story. And there's certain components in here that we need to beef up as we move forward. So I do support it. But as I say, we as a council and the community need to step up to ensure that this decline of 3% over 3 years is not still continuing today. And if I look out my window, I might have seen 3 trees 3 years ago, but I can guarantee you now that there's bugger all trees out there, out looking out my window. They're all gone. And so to say that we've got 33.5%, I think we're kidding ourselves. Anyway, I support the document with those sort of comments.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll just get the director, if the acting general manager is comfortable to respond to the specific numbers, because I understand that our numbers are significantly higher than that. We had a fairly comprehensive briefing on trees at the end of last year. I thought that there was something around the order of 37% tree canopy. So if you're saying it was 33 a couple of years ago and now it's 37, we're in the right direction. So, Director.
Document for 22.
Mr. Mayor, the number on the Resilient Sydney platform is 37% for Hunters Hill LGA. It has reduced over the last few years, but not as significantly as what you've suggested. But I do share your point on private dwellings, and I know that Steve and I and Kieran and I have had various conversations about amendments we can potentially make to our planning documentation, our LEP and DCP, to align with places like Lane Cove Council and what they've done to ensure better controls for our development. And we are also working on some ways within council we can monitor that and better through using EMAPs, using GIS platforms that allow us an ability to see what's going on in private dwellings and be able to map what DAs, for instance, are currently live and have tree impacts. And so we can monitor through live data. So we are really actively looking at that, and I look forward to working with council more on that, because I share your concerns.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, go back into debate. Is there anyone to speak against the motion? Councillor Priestley. Welcome back, and congratulations on the recent nuptials.
I disagree. I think that this urban forest management strategy report is the most comprehensive piece of work that I've ever seen in my time on council on trees in this locality. I think it addresses a number of different things. For example, I think we need to acknowledge that over 50% of our LGA is covered in vegetation. So whilst it's not necessarily trees, that's other forms of flora. So that shouldn't go unnoticed. Sam, I do have a question on your comment around canopy coverage decreasing, because if what's in the report is correct, saying that 33.5% of the LGA was covered in trees at 22, and then you're saying today it's 37, that would be an increase.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will double check that, because the Resilient Sydney platform is 37%.
Yeah.
I'll double check that statistic, because I've never seen the 33%. It may be a typo.
It's on page
very
17
unfortunate
of the report.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that aside, obviously this strategy even goes into more granular detail, and I think addresses Councillor Williams' concerns around biodiversity. It actually says biodiversity is essential moving forward. Trees from outside of various species should be selected to avoid monoculture concerns. It suggests top 3 species that could be planted. It even goes into detail around the useful life expectancy of those sorts of species, the size, the vitality, the age that should be planted. that is broken down on a specific basis for each different suburb within the municipality. And I think that we should have a bit of faith in the organisation that is Hunters Hill Council to be delivering on a comprehensive report like this. And I trust that on the basis of this strategy that's been prepared, the director being Steve and with Sam as well, we don't seem to have a problem in execution. I think that this is really good work, and I think it will go to the vitality of Hunters Hill's tree canopy going forward. I think it forms a really good basis for maintaining the values that we so have in trees and other flora in our municipality. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Maybe it wasn't a typo, we just picked up 4%, so we're heading in the right direction. Yeah. But we will check that. Councillors, I think you're speaking in favour of the
Against the amendment.
Oh, to be clear, the amendment's actually the motion, because that was moved originally as the motion. So if you didn't pass the current motion, you would not be passing the document. The amendment was a part 2 to bring a further report back to the next meeting. So you could foreshadow the original motion that's in the paper.
Yes.
Or you want to foreshadow the original motion? Yes. Okay. Councillors, is there any further debate? Speakers for the motion as it is on the paper, as it is on the floor? Councillor Vergara.
I'm speaking for the motion. I think this is a great policy. I like that it doesn't just say we're committed to trees. Great policy. I think the amendment in terms of asking for specifics and execution is useful, it's helpful. It means we are not just talking the talk, we are walking the walk. So it's great.
Sorry, councillors. Any speakers against the motion? The motion on the floor. The motion on the floor being the original motion plus Councillor Lane's inclusion at the beginning of this debate, which is that a further report be brought back to the next council meeting. Councillor Preston has foreshadowed the motion in the paper, but we're not debating that at the moment. Is there any further debate on the motion on the floor? For? Against? I'll move. I'll put. Oh, sorry. Right of reply, Councillor Lane.
Yeah, I would just say that I think this isn't an aspersion on the officers of our council. This is really just a request for us as the council to understand a little bit more about what that forward direction is. I think that the Director of Sustainability gave us some excellent insights into what might be in that action plan, but having it laid out for our benefit and the benefit of others, I think it can only help council in the future. So I'd commend the preparation of that list.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We now move to item 4.3, boat trailer parking policy. Is there any discussion? Is it moved? Councillor Vergara, seconded. Councillor Williams. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, question, Councillor Vergara.
Sheet. I'm not sure which director this is. My question is in relation to number 0.2 on the fact sheet at C. Should there be an or there, or is it intended that C and D are read together?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Director.
I haven't got it in front of me. I apologise.
Do you want to see my copy?
Yes.
It really is. Do you have to interfere with public amenity and have been there for more than 20 days, or one or the other? Just because the A and the B have ors.
Should be.
Be an all.
All member.
That'll be amended. Councillors, any further discussion on this paper? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr.
Speaking
Mayor.
for.
Yes. I think it's great that we're able to move forward now on a broader front than just boat trailers. Well, my understanding of the new fact sheet, it indicates that it relates to property left unattended, which can be a range of things. And that's an enormous advance on where we have been with dealing with boat trailers in isolation of other problems of normal trailers, of abandoned this and that that we find in our streets. This empowers council to move forward on a broader front. We need to repeal the boat trailer, but I think we need to also highlight the emphasis that we now have capability across a broader range and a broader mix of unattended items in our streets.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, can I just check? Is there any items, given a lot of the rest of the meeting is minutes, and I note that there is a speaker that will be read out on item 4.9, but we could do that in block. Is there any items that councillors are burning to speak about? Councillor Prieston? Item
4.7.
4.7, yep. Councillors? Councillor Williams?
Just dealt with by a question, if I may.
Yes.
In item 411,
Yes.
we have a series of tables attached, and on the top of them it says confidential status report. Should that be in the papers if it's confidential?
As General Manager or Acting General Manager, are you happy for the Director to?
Yes. Yes.
Hey.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's a standard pro forma that we use with the legal reports, and it's been there for a while, so we just put it, it's part of the heading.
Maybe we could change it.
We will
We
from now on.
We can
will from
certainly
now on.
change that. Councillor Lane.
Again, I had questions, so I don't know if we deal with them now or later, but on 410, 412 and 5.2.
I'll tell you what, if we move the rest in block, once we can debate the block, and you can ask questions in block,
Sure.
if you're comfortable.
That's fine.
Councillors, if I am reading the room right, I'm looking for someone to move a motion that items 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, 4.12, 5.1, 5.2, and are all moved in block, excluding item 4.7. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now move to that item to consider those in block. Councillors, do we have a mover? Moved Councillor Kassab, seconded Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. Any comments or questions with respect to the items in block? Councillor Lane.
In 4.10 on DAs, I just note that the final DA that's in the report refers to a heritage listed property. And so the question is to the Director of Planning as to why the cap still hasn't met to consider the heritage listed item as the DCP would direct.
You're talking about through you, Mayor. Yeah, I think you're talking about 4 View Street.
Sorry, I just
The
closed
last
it again.
one in the.
It's rather than
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. With Cap, I'll let the mayor respond to that if he wants as the chair, but Cap, there hasn't been any applications. This application was so far apart that we had to unfortunately refuse the application. We gave the applicant numerous attempts to resolve it. If you go onto the website, you will able to see the proposal. It's a lift mixed in between the beautiful heritage item, and that's why it wasn't referred, because it was way off kilter.
Yeah. I think that's fine. I just wonder if it ends up in court, whether having the CAP having commented on it may help us in that future.
Through you, Mayor, I just want to add that this wouldn't fit the criteria for a review of CAP in regard to the scale and size of it and the importance of our heritage person review in detail. This application has also been referred to the court. They have appealed this, and we gave them ample opportunity to come and talk to us and amend the plan and get a proper heritage person to manoeuvre a lift within a beautiful heritage site, and it unfortunately didn't go that way. So we had to move quickly, and that's response.
Councillor Lane, thank you. Could I just also, and I was remiss in not doing this, there is a submission that has been received to item 4.9, which is the minutes of the Hunters Hill Local Area Traffic Committee held on 27th of February. Shannon Kenneth has asked that an officer read that out at the meeting. So in consideration of these in block, I'll just ask either the GM or perhaps Sam, given you're in the room, could read out that submission for our consideration.
Thanks, Sam.
Unfortunately, as I am unable to attend the meeting in person, I thank the council for the opportunity to have my feedback submission read by a councillor during this meeting. I am writing to provide formal feedback to the proposed installation of 2 loading zone parking spots at 39 Alexandra Street within the Hunters Hill Council area. As a local resident, I am concerned that these additional loading zones will cause unnecessary inconvenience and exacerbate the existing parking shortages in an already busy area. It is understood that loading zones serve a functional purpose. However, in this case, there are already 2 on-site parking spots available that could be utilised for loading and unloading. These designated spaces would effectively serve the intended purpose without encroaching upon valuable public parking, which is already limited. The introduction of additional loading zones on the street will reduce the number of parking spaces available for residents, visitors and customers to their precinct, increasing congestion, impact local businesses that rely on accessible parking for their patrons, and contribute to traffic flow issues in an already high demand area. Given these concerns, I respectfully request that Hunters Hill Council reconsider the necessity of these additional loading zones and explore alternative solutions such as maximising the use of existing on-site parking spaces. I appreciate your time in listening to the feedback I have submitted and urge the council to reconsider and reject the proposal and ensure that practical solutions are prioritised over unnecessary disruptions.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Kassab, question or speaking to? Question.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to Shannon's feedback and obviously that item that we previously discussed at the local area traffic committee meeting, I just wanted to clarify, or if you're able to clarify at all, the concerns that Shannon has spoken about, which I know we discussed at the time before making our decision. To give us some clarity around why they can't just use the already 2 spaces that are at the back and why the additional loading zones are required, please.
Great. Oh, I'm not sure who that goes to. Acting General Manager?
Through to the Director, I think. Sam, is it one of yours?
Yes, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, the loading zone proposed is only 1 car parking spot out the front, and it's for trucks and delivery vehicles to park when loading goods and food and what have you on and off. For the truck to park on site, it will be difficult for that truck to reverse out and so on and so forth. It's not designed for that purpose. The loading zone is the proposed way forward. The loading zone is a result of a court case which proposed it be installed subject to traffic committee approval, and as such, that's why we're here.
Sorry, Planning Director.
Mr. Mayor, through you, to add to that, councillors, this was premised through a court approval back in 23, and the court, a condition of the 23, stated that a loading bay would have to be placed outside the subject site having regard to the use. It had to be outside because the current car parking for the subject site has a garage and a hard stand space inside for the residential unit up top. So the car parking outside has already been accommodated for the development, hence the loading dock zone outside in the street. So it's a premise from a condition of consent through the court back in 23, and it came to the traffic committee for formalisation.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Williams.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
That raises this question. The report doesn't give any reasoning behind the decisions that have been made. I can't understand why these decisions or where the request has come from. And I think that fact highlights it, that we've just got a single outcome, no history, no recognition that there is prior requirements on that site. So I found it very confusing as to why we're doing this. It may have merit why we're doing it, but there's nothing in the documentation that provides us with that reasoning. The second question relates to the quorum of the traffic committee. Is 3 sufficient?
Sorry, I'll get the director to answer both questions if needed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The quorum, we did have a quorum and it was sufficient. Busways don't vote, but busways were present, all but the road safety officers and the state member were present at that meeting, but all who could vote voted. The other question was, I believe the report that went to traffic committee detailed the history behind the court case and the reason for the loading zone. So it might not have provided the detail that was sufficient for yourself, but I did think it was.
Perhaps, sorry, I might preempt your question. Perhaps we could attach that report if there's no confidentiality associated with it to future business papers.
Yep.
Yeah, not only for councillors, but also for community to know background, so they don't go to the traffic.
We've been on council too long, Ross. I preempted what you're going to ask.
You're reading my mind. It's scary.
Councillors, any further questions or debate? Councillor Vergara.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, probably to the director. The number 0.2, that no stopping signage be adjusted. Was that part of the order, the court order, or was just the court related to the loading zone?
Director.
Through you, Mayor, it was just related to installing a loading zone.
Then why do you need that no stopping zone when it's within 10 metres of the corner?
Is that blue lined, that section? Sorry, Director. Yes.
I'm just having a look.
Sorry, yellow lined, I should say.
Potentially it could be yellow line. That was just proposed as part of the report, but usually the yellow line is sufficient rather than the sign. It may have been to provide clarity. I'd have to come back.
Be happy to come back on that.
Yeah, I just think it's over signage. Don't need it. You're well within 10 metres of that corner. Road village can't park within 10 metres. Over signage. Spot up.
Yep. Councillors, any further questions? Debate, discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the block? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now go back to item 4.7 minutes. The Cultural and Events Advisory Committee held on 26th of February 2025. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Denise Sleeman. Councillor Prieston, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, just really quickly. Just to commend the work of Sherry and her team in producing the online module, which is called, I can't remember what the name of it is. My hand is held. Makes sense. It's a really helpful online tool that Sherry showed us in the last Cultural and Events Advisory Committee, which allows all different stakeholders for local events to go in, check the status of various things in relation to that event, and also for the community to interact on that platform as well, which which is really useful, and I think also will provide kind of the solution to what we've been looking for, which is an interactive kind of calendar view of all the events that are upcoming for council and the community. And then also I wanted to ask a question, perhaps through you, Mr. Mayor, to Sherry or whoever can answer, just around the grant for the Open Streets event planning, which I understand closed last week. And we discussed potentially in that meeting holding a Lunar New Year event or doing something similar with that grant funding. So I just wanted to know if we ended up applying and the circumstances and how we think.
Sorry, Sherry, unless you have anything to add, Acting General Manager?
No, but I think Sherry's going to confirm we did lodge it because I signed a letter last week to go with it. So I'll let Sherry.
Sherry,
say-
thank you.
Yes, so we did, yep, we applied for the grant, and Sam also was our other seconder for the grant, as well as the letter of support from the general manager, and that is for a Lunar New Year event, which will be for 3 years, like the next 3 years if we are successful.
Thank you, Sherry. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Kassab,
Thank you. Mr.
speaking
Mayor.
against the motion.
What?
No.
I was like, no,
Speaking,
no, I
speaking.
just clarify that,
Question?
that, well, sure, but I just want to clarify that I'm the deputy chair. The minutes say that councillor Ms. Lehman is deputy chair.
I think
It's
that was,
minor, but
I
just
think
thought
that
I'd
was
mention it.
confirmed at the last meeting, was it not? But I'm happy to have that confirmed. Is that correct? On the events,
Page 258.
on the events committee?
Are you on it?
No, that was a typo previously.
Must be a typo.
Yeah.
We'll get that fixed, councillor and
Not a
councillor and deputy chair.
No, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Not favour.
In favour? That is unanimous. Yes, councillor Williams, questions with notice. You have a question with notice regarding traffic counters in Woolwich. There is a answer there for you. Are you satisfied with that? Yes. Thank you, councillors. Any other business? We had a quick one tonight, councillors. It might be a record for this new council. If there is no other items of general business, we'll close the meeting at 7:23 p.m. Thank you, councillors.